Good afternoon, everyone. Before we go ahead and get started, I want to allow a few additional moments to see if any additional participants log in. But I do want to make sure that you are all able to see the screen in front of you and that you can hear me okay. If the sound quality is good on your end, you can see the screen. You could please just utilize the chat function, just indicating that all is good on your end. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thank you so much for the feedback, Allie. It looks like we are just past 2 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a few participants join us as I progress through today's presentation, but I do want to welcome you to today's virtual information session. The focus of today's session is to review really the financing options and really talk about what sort of tips we have to provide to you to really help you finance your Doctor of Pharmacy education. So I know that I've been in contact with most of you. My name is Melissa Ruggiero. I am one of the Assistant Directors of Admissions here at Regis University, and I work specifically with our Doctor of Pharmacy program. So I know that I've been working with some of you, as a few of you on here have just been accepted into our program, and then others are currently going through the application process. So welcome. We do not have our financial aid counselor, James Caesar, here with us today, but I do want to introduce you to James Caesar. He is the financial aid counselor, and he works with all of our incoming Doctor of Pharmacy students. So at any point, I can get you in contact with him if you have specific financial aid questions. It would not really be necessary to connect with him until you've been accepted into our program, but I can always remain as your initial point of contact when it comes to financing options, and we at a later date can get you in contact with James as well. So today's session should take us around about 40 minutes to go through everything, 45 minutes. I will leave time at the end to answer any additional questions that come up. But I do want to encourage you to utilize this chat function on your screen. This is a really great place to get your questions answered. So as I'm going through components of financial aid or anything that I'm reviewing this afternoon, do not be afraid to ask any questions utilizing the chat function. I have muted all of your microphones, so there's no outside distractions, but I will address those questions as they come through, and or I'll leave time at the end to answer those questions as well. I'm going to start off today's session by just providing a quick overview of Regis University as a whole and our mission for those of you who are not too familiar with Regis quite yet. We'll then talk about the total investment component, so really what your total cost of attendance is looking like and any other fees and expenses you may be dealing with. We'll then discuss your financing options, so review grant, scholarship, and loan options that are in place to help finance your Doctor of Pharmacy education. Lastly, we'll talk about the financial aid process, how to go about applying for financial aid, and then we'll review your next steps, and I will address some frequently asked questions to wrap up the presentation. So a little bit about Regis University as a whole. For those of you who are not too familiar with Regis, we were founded in 1877 as a private nonprofit Jesuit institution located in Denver, Colorado. And being a Jesuit institution, we were founded by a group of Jesuits who are a division of the Catholic faith. It's really important to highlight you don't need to be religious or Catholic to come to Regis. The Jesuits are very accepting of all faiths and backgrounds. About 55% of the Regis community comes from faiths outside of the Catholic Church. That's something I just want to point out. But in being a Jesuit institution, it's really about the values of the Jesuits that we embody within our School of Pharmacy and Regis University as a whole, which is men and women in service of others. So we put a really big emphasis on giving our students that skill set, those skill sets, and that ethical moral compass of how to best care for and treat those populations different from your own, including the underserved, and really making you a more well-rounded healthcare practitioner. We are one of 28 Jesuit institutions in the United States, one of 2 that have a Doctor of Pharmacy program, the other one being Creighton in Omaha, Nebraska. And Regis University as a whole has been ranked as the top university in the West for over 20 consecutive years. And a little bit about Regis University. I'm here to really represent our College of Health Professionals, so Rickard Hartman, which is where our Doctor of Pharmacy program falls. Our other healthcare programs include our Doctor of Physical Therapy program, a number of nursing programs starting at the undergrad level, going all the way through the doctoral level. We have a partnership with Creighton University for the occupational therapy program, and then there's our Division of Health Services Education and our Division of Counseling and Family Therapy. We do have other schools that are also make up Regis University. So we have our undergraduate population as well as our our Anderson College of Business, our College of Computer and Information Sciences, and our College of Contemporary and Liberal Studies, which are more catered to our post-traditional adult audiences in which they're taking classes either online or in the evenings. So a little bit more about the mission. This really just exemplifies our Jesuit mission and our mission as a School of Pharmacy, which is to educate men and women to become exceptional and socially responsible pharmacists. We are committing to the Jesuit tradition of a values-centered education, which focuses on personal development and leadership in the service of others, including the underserved. The picture that you see in front of you is one of our Doctor of Pharmacy classes after their white coat ceremony. So that's something that our Doctor of Pharmacy students are taking part in after they complete their first semester at Regis. They are handed that white coat, which they use to go on to their clinical rotations, but it also has a symbolic meaning that's really celebrating their entrance into the pharmacy field as an official student pharmacist here at Regis. Want to just highlight some of our really the outcomes of Regis and our students here. Our NAPLEX pass rate for our average for the past 3 years, so that's from the classes of 2015 through 2017 was a 90%. That was a first-time pass rate. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the NAPLEX is the national licensure exam that students take upon completing their Doctor of Pharmacy degree. Upon passing that, they're then licensed to practice pharmacy nationwide. We have yet to receive the results for our 2018 graduating class, which we should be receiving fairly soon. And we, from the information that has been shared with us, it is looking strong. So it's looking like that pass rate may be significantly higher than that 90% rate. That's something we're really excited to get those results for. On-time graduation rate is 90%. We do have additional students that are graduating that may have taken some additional time. And then our residency match rates for the graduating classes of 2014 through 2017 has been above the national average at a 70% or higher. So 70% of our students that have applied to get matched into a residency program upon completing their Doctor of Pharmacy education have been placed, which the national average has consistently been somewhere within the 60% range. So that is definitely an opportunity for our students to get that additional training that they need to then enter a clinical setting of pharmacy. You'll see some employers who have hired our graduates, so some that are nationally recognized, some that are big names here in Denver as well. So the national median salary of pharmacists nationwide, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, was just above $124,000. We are proud to report that our Regis graduates from the 2017 graduating class, their average entry-level salary was just above $125,000. So our Regis graduates are getting entry-level jobs above that national median salary, which does really speak hugely on our pharmacy education. They're getting jobs above that national median salary and able to progress from there. Pharmacy as a whole has been rated among the top 20 jobs for getting ahead, and this is by Forbes of 2018. Other sort of areas that the pharmacy field has been recognized for is the overall work-life balance that pharmacists are receiving compared to other healthcare fields. So now that we've reviewed some of the outcomes of our Regis graduates and some of really the highlights of the pharmacy field, what we're going to move on to next is really your investment component. So I'm going to really be talking about what your overall cost of attendance would look like as a Regis student pharmacist. So we really base our tuition on a per credit hour cost, which is $1,095 per credit hour. That is pretty much all inclusive of all other fees. There's very few additional fees added up on top of that. I will review each of those individual fees. But when you're looking at the total cost of tuition, it's really going to be based on that per credit hour cost of $1,095 per credit hour. Our program is a total of 150 credits. That tuition, I will break that down for you on a yearly basis, which we will review again when we go through financial aid. But in looking at that per credit hour cost, the cost of tuition per year for your first 3 years is right about $37,000. In the fourth year, the tuition does jump up to about $52,000. The reason for that cost differential in the fourth year is because students are taking significantly more credits in that fourth year. For their first 3 years, they have classes in the fall and spring semesters, and they get summers off. Following the completion of their third year, that is when students will jump right into their advanced pharmacy practice experiences. That is their full-time clinical rotations that begin the summer after their third year and go all the way up to their graduation in their fourth year. So they're essentially doing credits over 3 semesters. And so they're just completing more credits to make that cost a little bit higher. Other costs that have been outlined here, some of these are going to be optional fees. So students have the option to purchase a parking permit to park on campus, and that's going to be $200 per semester. Other students may opt to not purchase a parking permit, and they may park off-site, or they may walk, take the bus to campus, bike. There are other options. There's a $25 student activity fee per semester, and that gives access to really all of our amenities on campus to our Doctor of Pharmacy students. That includes access to the gym, access to the Learning Commons, which is our tutoring center on campus, our Center for Career and Professional Development, so access to the library and free printing and all of those things. Students are completing an annual background check and drug screening, so this is an additional $79 per year. They are also renewing their compliance package, which is another $22 per year. So as you see, these fees are pretty minimal in compared to that initial cost of the per credit hour tuition. And then lastly, there is an optional fee for health insurance. So it is required that all of our Doctor of Pharmacy students have health insurance so they can go through their clinical rotations. Many students will come in with their own health insurance plan. They don't need to purchase the insurance through Regis. However, if students don't have their own health insurance plan, we do offer that as an option. And so that is a cost of just under $3,500 per year. That is going to be broken in half. So there's going to be coverage for the fall semester and then coverage for the spring and summer, which does break roughly in half. just so you understand how that works. Students can enroll in that health insurance plan on an annual basis, but they can, if you enroll for fall, you are enrolled for that entire academic year, and you can enroll mid-academic year. But just going back to this, as you can see, our fees are very minimal. Really, the only required fees that you're seeing are going to be your per credit hour cost for tuition, your student activities fee, and then completing compliance and your background drug screening. I did forget to touch upon our book cost. Our book cost is relatively limited. We do attribute that to really our curriculum that we teach here at Regis. We have a team-based learning curriculum within team-based learning environment with an integrated curriculum where a lot of the content is self-created by faculty members. Students are also purchasing some books which are going to be reused throughout their time in the program. So we overestimate a cost about $700 for all 4 years. So that's not broken down on an annual cost. Since there really aren't on-campus living options, I do want to just provide some information on what living expenses might look like set for the state of Colorado, specifically within Denver. And so these are really what has been set by the state of Colorado. And so housing is about, and these numbers can of course fluctuate. Students are finding rent that can be lower than this. So depending on where you're going to be looking to live, it can be higher than this. So as you live maybe further outside of the city, have additional roommates, your rent cost, of course, could go down. But average cost is about $852 per month. Food, just over $400 per month. Transportation, $185, and then additional personal expenses, $151. As I mentioned, these are estimations, and these costs can, of course, vary. So these costs may seem in line with what some of you are expecting, depending on whether or not you are from Denver. Maybe you live in a more expensive area of the nation, or maybe you live somewhere where the cost of living is very inexpensive, so maybe slightly more. But the reason really for these costs is Denver has become a huge demand. There's a lot of people who are moving here for education, for careers, for work-life balance. Denver is such a great place to live and to work. And for that reason, it has been ranked as the #1 best place to live by U.S. News and World Report. It's also been ranked as the #1 best place for business and careers by Forbes. So a great place to be getting your doctoral degree, should you want to stick around in Denver after and land a job here too. As I mentioned, these costs do fluctuate. So there are ways to help manage these costs. I many times get questions about intern licenses. So all of our students in the Doctor of Pharmacy program, they will go through the coursework to get their intern license during their first semester. They are not able to get that intern license ahead of time. And so once students get halfway through their first semester, they should have their intern license. That intern license is what students need to go through their clinical rotations, which start in their second semester here at Regis. Many of our current students are using that intern license to also work in local pharmacies. So you may currently work as a pharmacy technician. You can use that intern license to work at a community or retail pharmacy at a higher pay grade than a pharmacy technician. I know that the pharmacies in the surrounding areas of where Regis is are very flexible. They're always looking for students to take on additional shifts so they can kind of work with your schedule. May have students working as few as 10 hours a week up to 20 to 30 hours a week, just depending on bandwidth. We don't always recommend that you work that first semester, kind of want to get your feet wet and kind of figure out what you can handle first, but it's entirely up to you and what you know your workload and what you can handle. There are other options to work while in the program. So other students may work as like in a restaurant, wait staff, students are also eligible for a work study, so there are work study opportunities here on campus that students can look into. As I mentioned before, your rent definitely can go down significantly if you're open to living with roommates. So there are options that we provide in helping you to find roommates. Once you've been accepted, or if you've already been accepted, you are invited to a private Facebook page that allows for you to connect with your incoming classmates, can find roommates through that platform. We also have our off-campus housing site, which allows for you to set up a profile, and you can search and be searchable by other Regis graduate students. So students in our physical therapy program, our biomedical science program, and our nursing programs. So that's another way to find roommates as well. And then transportation. So if you do end up living with other pharmacy students, what pharmacy students may do is they may choose to carpool to campus together. And if they're doing that, they can get one parking permit shared among their house or their roommates. And that will allow for every one of their vehicles to be registered with that one parking permit, but they can only bring one car to campus at a time. But that's a huge way to save on cost. If you're living with 3 other roommates, you're paying $50 a semester as opposed to $200 a semester. So something else to keep in mind. And then maybe you aren't driving to campus, maybe you're walking, biking, maybe you live super close to campus, you don't need to drive, or you may opt to use street parking, off-campus parking, which is certainly an option. I'd just like to advise you to be aware of street sweeping signs. There are some streets that are permit only, so you just want to be aware of that, but there are plenty of students that may park off-site. Next, we're going to move on to scholarship and grant options. So by applying to our Doctor of Pharmacy program and really being accepted, following your admission decision, all students are given consideration for one of our merit-based scholarships. These awards are really made to our top applicants. It's going to be based primarily on merit. So items that are taken into consideration include their academic performance outlined in their application. So we're looking at grades, math, science, GPA, cumulative GPA, PCAT scores. A number of items are taken into consideration. Your performance on your interview day is also taken in consideration, in which you're given a score for that day. Based on all of that criteria, our top candidates from each interview day are identified, in which scholarships may be awarded in the amounts ranging from there's 3 separate amounts. There's a $20,000 scholarship amount, which is our Dean's Scholar, our $10,000 scholarship amount, which is our Cura Personalis, our Magis Scholarship, and then our $4,000 scholarship amount, which is our Cura Personalis Scholarship. This is a one-time scholarship award, which is broken up into 8 semesters, broken up to 8 for every single semester you're attending your pharmacy program here. In addition to these scholarships, there are corporate funded scholarships. These are scholarships that are available to students once they are officially a student on campus. So once they begin their fall semester, they are eligible to apply to these opportunities. We have an awards and scholarships committee made up of faculty and staff members here at Regis, and their role, we're really in the School of Pharmacy, their role is to go out into the community and find scholarships that our Doctor of Pharmacy students are eligible to apply for. Definitely recommend taking advantage of this option, as not all students do, which would increase your eligibility for earning one of these scholarships. These amounts can vary, but another option. A few other options that are not in the screen in front of you. We do have a working list of outside scholarship options. I will be following up with all of you that joined us today, and I will include the link to this site. It includes, we've compiled a number of sites that have scholarships that we believe Doctor of Pharmacy candidates may or may not be eligible for. So those are outside opportunities that you can look into. And then we have a few internal options that will become more applicable as we progress through the spring semester. So For our accepted students, those options will be communicated to you as they become posted on our website. But for example, we have an alumni-supported graduate scholarship. It's for first-time graduate students. They do need to show a commitment to community service, but that is a scholarship that our Doctor of Pharmacy students are eligible for. And then lastly, we do have a social media scholarship. It's called our Regis Inspired Scholarships, in which accepted students are would need to post something onto Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter with a picture and a description, really demonstrating why they are inspired to begin their Doctor of Pharmacy education at Regis. This is a scholarship that will come up much later on in the process, but it's something that students will be entering as it gets closer to the start of classes for the year that they're beginning in the Doctor of Pharmacy program. Lastly, I want to mention the Colorado Graduate Grant. This is a needs-based grant in the amount of $5,000 per year. In order to be eligible for this grant, you must be a resident of the state of Colorado for at least 1 year. So if you are coming into our Doctor of Pharmacy program for fall 2019, you're currently a resident of the state of Colorado, you are eligible to apply. Let's say that you are not currently a resident of the state of Colorado, but will be starting in your pharmacy education this fall. What you want to do is, as soon as you move out to Colorado this summer, you want to go through the steps of becoming a resident. So you want to make sure you get a Colorado state driver's license and you're registered to vote in the state of Colorado. Once you've had your residency status for 1 year, you are eligible to apply for the Colorado Graduate Grant. So theoretically, you would be eligible by your second year. To apply, you are simply filling out a residency form, which can be found on our website. You're submitting that to our financial aid office. You will not be notified of whether or not you have been given the Colorado Graduate Grant really until we get closer to the start of classes. So it typically does not happen until sometime in the month of August, maybe late July. So do keep that in mind, but you can submit that residency form to our financial aid office at any point if you are going to be starting in our pharmacy program this fall. You do reapply for this graduate grant every year, so you can earn up to $2,000 for the entire program. Definitely something worth applying for, as it is free money given to you. Next, we're going to move on to loans. So there are some federal loan options. And I would say a good majority of our incoming Doctor of Pharmacy students are completing the FAFSA, which I'll review in a little bit, in order to be considered for a variety of loan options. So the first the initial loan option that one would be considered for after completing the FAFSA is the unsubsidized Stafford loan. This is a non-need-based, non-credit-based student loan from the federal government. There is a fixed amount that all students are being awarded, which is $33,000 per year for their first 3 years, and the amount does jump up slightly to just over $37,000 in the fourth year. And the reason for that, additional funding in the fourth year is to offset that higher cost of tuition. If you recall earlier in the presentation, I talked about the cost of tuition, in which it's about $37,000 per year for your first 3 years, and it's just about $52,000 in that fourth year. So these loans, so you would be awarded a loan in the amount of $33,000 for your first 3 years. You can take out that entire amount. You can take out a lesser of that amount. It's entirely up to you and what you might need. But it is important to note that these federal loans do have a current fixed interest rate of 6.6%. The lifetime limit is $224,000 cumulative, and your repayment for this loan will begin 6 months after graduation or from the last day of attendance. You can set up repayment plans ranging from 10 to 25 years following graduation. The other loan option that you may apply for later on once you determine if you need any additional funding is your Federal Direct Graduate Plus loan. So your unsubsidized loan generally does not cover all tuition and fees. Therefore, a Graduate Plus loan can be utilized to cover the difference or unmet costs of tuition and fees. A Federal Plus loan credit application is required, and the student must not have adverse credit history. In order to be considered for this, you must also complete a FAFSA application, and the current fixed interest rate for the Graduate Plus loan is 7.6%. Repayment will begin 6 months after graduation or from the last day of attendance. Do note that these federal loans carry an origination fee. The origination fee for the unsubsidized loan is 1.062%. And the origination fee for the Graduate Plus loan is 4.248%. You might be wondering what this means. So what this means is for every $1,000 of unsubsidized loans that you borrow, you are charged roughly $11. And for every $1,000 of Graduate Plus loans that you borrow, you are charged roughly $43. Additionally, there's another loan option that some students may choose to look into, and that's going to be private student loans. These are not federal loans, but they're private loans. These are going to be credit-based loans. Interest rates can vary, so you will want to consult with your private lender to inquire on the interest rate. Private student loans can be utilized to cover the difference or unmet cost of tuition and fees, and repayment begins 6 months after graduation or from the last day of attendance. So in order to acquire a private loan, you may be working directly with a bank or a credit union. Those are examples of lenders that may offer that private loan. So if you are finding private loans that have a lower interest than the federal loans, then that may be a good option for you. I will say majority of students are going to be using federal loans, as that can sometimes just be easier to access, but if you want to do some research on private loans, I do have a few students each year that may find private loans as an option. So when you're looking to take out these loans, you or whoever else may be helping to finance your education may have questions about repayment options. There are a number of resources out there to help you determine what your repayment plan might look like. One of those is studentloans.gov, so you can go onto that site, you can put in the amount of money and loans that you intend to take out, what you want, the amount of time you want to repay your loans in, like within 10 years, 20 years, and then what your monthly fee might look like to pay it off by within 15 years, let's say. You can always contact your loan servicer to get additional information. There are some loan forgiveness programs out there. That's definitely going to take some additional research, but if you're open to working in more of a rural area, there may be opportunities for your loans to be forgiven after a certain period of time. So definitely something you'll want to keep in mind as you're looking to take out loans. So the federal loans that we discussed, you do need to complete the FAFSA to be considered for those. So many of you here, I'm sure, have gone through this process before, probably primarily as an undergraduate student. Very similar process to a graduate student, but I'm going to take you through those steps today. So really your first step in applying for financial aid is you need to complete the FAFSA application. In order to get started on this process, what you want to do first is you want to create a unique FAFSA ID. This can be done by going to fsaid.ed.gov, which will allow for you to create your unique FAFSA ID, and you'll want to hold on to that ID. Once you do that, you'll then want to start the FAFSA application, and you can do this by going to the website, which is fafsa.ed.gov. The application for 2019-2020 did launch starting on October 1 of 2018. So If you have not already done the FAFSA, now would be a good time to get started on it. We do recommend that you complete the FAFSA by March 1st of each year, which is only a few short weeks away. Of course, that is not a hard deadline. If you complete it after March 1st, you will not be penalized, but that's typically when we begin our awarding cycle. So the sooner you can complete it, the sooner you'll find out your financial aid award. On your FAFSA application, you do need to indicate your school selection. So if you have been accepted to Regis, will be coming to Regis in the fall, or believe that you'll be coming to Regis in the fall and are currently applying, you do want to enter the school code for Regis, which is 001363. The one area that is different from your undergrad, from doing the FAFSA as an undergrad student, is you are filing as an independent, so parental information is not required. If you do include it, that's not a big deal, but it's not required, just so you understand that. So when you are completing the FAFSA for 2019-2020, you will be asked to provide your 2017 federal tax information. So you want to make sure you have copies of your completed tax returns from 2017, W-2s, and any other asset information on hand. And so once you've gone ahead and completed the FAFSA, you will receive your financial aid award letter from Regis. And you'll be able to see all of that information in our internal portal. So through the Ranger portal, which if you have been accepted, you'll be learning about that shortly. If you haven't gotten to that point, more to come on that, but you'll be able to view that financial aid award letter. Once you've been awarded and have viewed that letter, you want to make sure that you are accepting your loans. That's your first step. Once you accept your loans, you then are going to need to do your entrance counseling and sign the master promissory note. These steps are outlined in your award letter. And this is really the process of applying for these loans so that they are going to be dispersed to you. And so this process can begin anywhere really from May 15th to June 30th. All right. And so after you've viewed and accepted your federal unsubsidized loans, this is when you would go back and apply for the Graduate Plus loans should you would need additional funding, or you might look to apply for a private student loan. But once you initially do the FAFSA, your initial loan consideration is that unsubsidized SAFR loan, and then you later would go back in and apply for the Grad Plus loan if that is necessary. A few other items to know is do keep in mind that our awarding cycle will start no sooner than March. Realistically, it may not be until April. So it is, you do want to get your FAFSA in as soon as possible so you can be awarded sooner. But if you are completing it after March, you won't be penalized. You may just receive an award a little bit later on. So now that I've gone through kind of the basics of financial aid and really all the resources that are in place to help finance your education, what I'd like to do to really wrap up today's session is to go through some frequently asked questions, and then we'll leave time at the end to address any further questions you might have. So the first question that we come across to quite frequently is, when should you fill out the FAFSA and which tax returns do you use? So the 2019-2020 FAFSA is currently available, and you should really plan to get that submitted by March 1. That is our recommended deadline. You will want to use the 2017 federal tax return information to complete the FAFSA for 2019-2020. Can you use student loans to help pay for your living expenses? The answer is yes. Student loans are an option for not only paying tuition and fees, but also assisting with living expenses. After all tuition and fees are satisfied and paid for by loans, any remaining loan amount in excess of tuition is what a student will receive for living expenses, which would be in the form of a refund check. Number 3, how long after you fill out the FAFSA and loan paperwork will you know your financial aid award package? So as long as we've entered the awarding cycle, which can be really anywhere between March and April timeframe, and once you've completed that FAFSA, students are normally notified of their award within 1 week. If additional time has passed, you're more than welcome to contact our financial aid office for FAFSA status updates. However, if you've already completed your FAFSA and you're not seeing anything, our awarding cycle has not begun, so do not worry, you're in good shape. But once we get to, I would say, mid-April, that's when you're going to want to start looking out for those awards if you haven't received one yet. Do you have to reapply for financial aid each year, and what does that entail? Yes, you do need to reapply for financial aid each year. We do recommend that you reapply by March 1st. This is not a hard date, but just a recommendation. If you miss the date, there are no penalties. So you're going to follow that same process that you do annually. Obviously, you'll be using your tax return information for that following year, but you do need to go ahead and reapply each year to get that to have those loans be awarded to you. When are funds dispersed? So funds are dispersed typically a week prior to the start of each semester for most semesters. After the disbursement of funds, tuitions and fees are paid, and a refund check is initiated from the excess of loans. Typically, it takes about 7 to 10 business days to receive a refund check by mail. Students do have the option to set up a direct deposit prior to disbursement of funds. Direct deposits are a much faster and a more reliable way to receive a refund. This process takes 3 to 5 days. So the tuition at Regis is due by the first day of classes. So I definitely recommend setting up a direct deposit so you can get those funds as soon as possible. Lastly, what are the repayment plan options? We did discuss this a little bit earlier. There are a number of websites where students have access to estimate repayment. A site that I would recommend is studentloans.gov. This will help assist you in estimating your monthly repayment. You can put in information on the amount of loans you're taking out, the time period you'd like to repay those loans back in, and you can get an estimate of what that monthly repayment might look like. The bottom of this slide, you do see the contact details for our financial aid advisor, James Caesar. His email and phone numbers there. If you have been accepted, you can connect with him at any point. If you haven't been accepted, it's probably not necessary to connect with him. Myself or Rick Kratzer, also in our Office of Admissions, can answer some of those questions for you if you're in the application process. That wraps up everything that I have for you today on really best practices on how to afford your Doctor of Pharmacy education. I will stick around for the next couple of minutes and get any additional questions answered, but I hope you found the information today useful, and I'll be following up with those of you who are here to provide some links on financial aid and other scholarship options you can look into. Great question. So we do have a question that came through. She has asked, if the loans do not cover all living expenses, will there be a credit check for additional school loans? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can you, Natasha, would you mind specifying that question? And perhaps we can connect offline, but I'm not, you may have loans that won't cover the entirety of tuition and living expenses. And if that's the case, we can work with you in finding additional loans, or we can work with you in looking at other scholarship options. Okay, so you need to apply for additional school. So the two primary loans available at the graduate level are going to be your unsubsidized Stafford loan, and that's going to cover a good portion of the cost of tuition. You could of course can use some of that towards living expenses if you'd like, but it would primarily go towards the cost of tuition. The credit check will be on the Graduate Plus loan. That is a credit-based loan. It's an unfixed amount. So I don't know what that amount would look like, but it is an option that would be looked at, and that would include a credit check. So Natasha, let me know if that makes sense. I'm going to address the next question that came through. The question is, are residencies after the PharmD program paid? Yes, Mia, they typically are. They are paid. However, the salary isn't going to be as high as it might be if you were to go right into a full-time career entering retail pharmacy or another sort of career. Typically, you're going to be looking at a salary, I wouldn't quote me on it, but somewhere starting at like 50, 60,000 for a residency program, as opposed to entering the field and getting something in the six figures. No, Allie, that's a great question. You're all set. You don't need to fill out the FAFSA again. You and I will certainly be connecting individually about your situation, but we don't need to fill out the FAFSA again. You're good to go. Well, one moment. Let me determine this. You use the same code for an undergrad and graduate student, but you want to make sure you completed the FAFSA as a graduate student and not an undergraduate student. So if you complete it as an undergraduate student, you might have to complete a revision form, or you might have to redo the FAFSA. We can talk about that individually, and if we need to, we can get you in contact with James, and he can address that for you. Mia, I have a question came through. Do we have to sign the master promissory note again or get new loans if we are all set? Trying to understand your questions. I know you're also a current undergraduate student here. You wouldn't be all set unless, if you would like to utilize financial aid for this upcoming year, you have not been awarded loans. So you do need to wait for those loans to come through. Once you accept your loans, that's when you sign the master promissory note. So you are doing that annually. Great questions. What other questions do we have? Yeah, Mia, we can talk about that, but yes, if you were awarded an undergraduate merit-based scholarship for 4 years, it will carry over into pharmacy school. So if you were on a 2-year track, it will carry over to your first 2 years of pharmacy school. If you're on a 3-year track, it will carry over to your first year of pharmacy school, accumulated to a total of 4 years. So annually, it's about $37,000. So that is going to be cut in half. So it's about $18,500 roughly per semester for your first 3 years. Annually, your cost does go up in the 4th year to $52,000. So cut that in half, you're looking at about $26,000 per semester. You're welcome. Glad you guys all joined together. What other questions do we have? One, I will talk to you about that. Because you didn't apply through the FarmCast application, you are not going to be instructed to do that specific background check, and you'll be doing a separate one through Complio later on once we enter the summer semester. So do not worry about not having received that email. You're welcome. Are there any other questions that have come through? I want to thank you all for being here, and I will follow up with all of you with some additional information, but hope you found the information helpful.